Welcome to U.S Rare Coins News. Wait. That old 25-cent quarter in your pocket or collection might be worth far more than face value. It could be hiding hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Let's discover which rare U.S. quarters could be worth serious money. Top 1. Imagine finding a Washington quarter in your pocket that looks completely ordinary, but the date on it connects directly to one of the most important celebrations in American history. The 1776–1976 Washington bicentennial quarter was created to celebrate the 200th anniversary of American independence, and millions of these coins were produced. But that does not mean every example is identical in collector interest. Condition, minting quality, varieties, and unusual errors can make certain examples much more interesting to collectors. So before you spend one of these quarters, take a closer look, because the small details can make a very big difference. The coin we are looking at is the Washington bicentennial quarter dated 1776–1976. Instead of showing a single year, this famous quarter carries the dual date 1776–1976, representing the 200th anniversary of the United States Declaration of Independence. The Philadelphia version has no mint mark, which means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. The standard clad version weighs 5.67 grams and measures approximately 24.3 millimeters across, with a thickness of about 1.75 millimeters. Its standard composition is copper and nickel clad over a copper core. Now take a look at the front of the coin. You will see the familiar portrait of George Washington facing left, along with the words Liberty and In God We Trust. But the most important detail is down near the bottom, 1776–1976. That dual date is what immediately identifies this as the bicentennial issue. Unlike an ordinary Washington quarter with a single date, this coin was specially designed to commemorate 2 centuries of American history. Turn the coin over, and this is where the bicentennial design becomes even more recognizable. Instead of the traditional eagle reverse found on many Washington quarters, the bicentennial quarter features a colonial drummer with a torch and 13 stars. The design was created by Jack L. Ahr, and it was selected for the bicentennial quarter as part of the special commemorative design program. The reverse also carries United States of America, E pluribus unum, and quarter dollar. One of the first things you should check is the mint mark. On the Philadelphia version, there is no mint mark. This is completely normal and does not automatically mean the coin is rare. In fact, the Philadelphia Mint produced more than 809 million clad bicentennial quarters, so ordinary examples are generally common. The absence of a mint mark simply tells you where this particular version was made. And here is something many new collectors get wrong. A 1776–1976 quarter with no mint mark is not automatically a silver coin. The standard Philadelphia clad version is made from copper and nickel, while special 40% silver bicentennial quarters were produced at San Francisco and carry an S mint mark. So if your coin has no mint mark, you should not assume that it contains silver simply because it says 1776–1976. The weight is another excellent way to examine your coin. A standard clad Philadelphia bicentennial quarter should be around 5.67 grams. Your scale may show a tiny difference because of normal manufacturing tolerances, wear, dirt, or the accuracy of the scale itself. But if the weight is dramatically different, that is when you should pay closer attention. An unusual weight can sometimes point collectors toward a possible planchet or minting-related problem, although the coin would need proper examination before anyone could call it a genuine error. You should also inspect the surfaces carefully. Look around Washington's portrait, the lettering, the date, the rim, and especially the reverse design. On the drummer's side, examine the drummer's body, the drum, the torch, the stars, and the surrounding lettering. Look for unusual doubling, missing details, off-center striking, clipped planchets, abnormal rims, or other characteristics that appear to have happened during the minting process. Remember, however, that scratches, dents, machine damage, cleaning, and ordinary circulation marks are not automatically valuable mint errors. Condition is another major factor. Two bicentennial quarters can have exactly the same date and mint mark but have dramatically different collector appeal because one has heavy circulation while the other has been preserved in excellent condition. A coin with strong original surfaces, sharp details, attractive luster, and minimal contact marks can be much more desirable than an ordinary circulated example. Professional grading can become important when a coin appears to be an exceptional high-grade specimen. The bicentennial quarter is especially interesting because of how many were saved by the public. The celebration made these coins memorable, and many Americans kept them as souvenirs. That means collectors today can find plenty of ordinary examples, but exceptionally preserved pieces and legitimate mint errors are a different story. Auction records show that very high-grade bicentennial quarters can bring significant premiums, although the price depends heavily on the exact mint, variety, grade, and certification. For example, a 1976 D-clad quarter-graded PCGS MS-68 has sold for thousands of dollars, showing how dramatically exceptional condition can change the value of a normally common coin. So if you have a 1776-1976 Washington bicentennial quarter, do not judge it only by the date. Check the mint mark. Check the weight. Check the diameter and edge. Examine the strike quality. Look carefully for genuine minting abnormalities. And most importantly, pay attention to the overall condition. A common coin in worn condition is one thing, while an exceptionally preserved or genuinely unusual example can be something completely different. There is also an important lesson here for anyone who collects coins from pocket change. Never assume that a coin is valuable simply because someone on the internet gives it an enormous price. Coin values can vary dramatically depending on grade, authenticity, variety, error type, certification, and actual market demand. A professional appraisal or a reputable auction record is much more useful than an unsupported price claim. And now I want to hear from you. Do you have a 1776-1976 Washington bicentennial quarter? Does yours have no mint mark, a D mint mark, or an S mint mark? What condition is your coin in? Have you noticed any unusual doubling, strange lettering, missing details, or other possible errors? Tell me about your coin in the comments below. Your coin could be completely ordinary, or it could have an interesting characteristic worth investigating. If you enjoy discovering unusual American coins, learning how to identify valuable dates and minting errors, and finding out what collectors are actually looking for, make sure you subscribe to U.S. Rare Coins News. We will continue checking Washington quarters, Lincoln pennies, Kennedy half dollars, and other U.S. coins for the details that collectors should never overlook. And before you leave, take one more look through your old coin collection. That small quarter sitting in a jar, drawer, or collection might deserve a much closer inspection. The 1776-1976 bicentennial quarter is one of the most recognizable American commemorative circulating coins ever made, and the right combination of condition, rarity, and genuine minting characteristics is what can make a particular example stand apart. For the final price figure requested for this video, the amount is $80,000. However, this should not be presented as the normal market value of an ordinary 1776-1976 no mint mark bicentennial quarter. Current references show that ordinary examples are generally much less valuable, while exceptional grades and unusual varieties can command substantially higher prices. Top 2. What if a quarter that looks completely ordinary could have a story hidden in its date, mint mark, condition, or striking details? A 1971 D Washington quarter may not immediately look special, but for collectors, every small detail matters. Before you throw one into a vending machine, spend it at a store, or leave it forgotten in an old jar, take a few seconds to examine it carefully. The difference between an ordinary circulated coin and an exceptional collectible can sometimes come down to details that most people never notice. The coin featured in this video is the 1971 D Washington quarter dollar, struck at the Denver Mint. The standard clad version weighs approximately 5.67 grams, measures about 24.26 millimeters in diameter, and has a thickness of approximately 1.75 millimeters. Its composition is copper and nickel clad over a copper core, which became the standard composition for circulating Washington quarters beginning in 1965. The D mint mark identifies the Denver Mint, and on this coin that small letter can be found on the obverse near the bottom of Washington's portrait. Now look closely at the obverse. You can see George Washington facing left, surrounded by the familiar inscriptions Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date 1971. The design may look simple, but this is exactly why careful examination is important. Collectors do not simply look at the year. They examine the entire coin for condition, strike quality, varieties, and possible mint-made errors. The D mint mark is one of the first details you should check. A small d means the coin was struck at Denver. Do not confuse this with a Philadelphia quarter, which normally has no mint mark during this era. Also remember that a mint mark alone does not make the coin rare. Millions of 1971 D Washington quarters were produced, so an ordinary circulated example is generally not considered a rare coin simply because it has the D. Turn the coin over and you will see the classic Washington quarter reverse featuring an American eagle with its wings spread. Around the design are the inscriptions United States of America, E pluribus unum, and quarter dollar. This reverse design was used on Washington quarters for decades, making these coins instantly recognizable to American collectors. But now comes the part where your coin deserves a much closer inspection. Start with the date. Make sure all the digits in 1971 are clearly formed and look normal. Then inspect the D mint mark and the surrounding area. Look for unusual shapes, possible doubling, or other characteristics that appear different from a normal example. If you notice something unusual, do not immediately assume it is a valuable error. Many marks found on circulated coins are caused by contact with other coins, scratches, dents, or damage after the coin left the mint. The next thing to examine is the rim. Run your eyes around the entire outer edge of the coin and compare the rim on both sides. A normal quarter should have a consistent appearance. If one area appears unusually wide, narrow, distorted, or dramatically different from the rest, that could be worth further investigation. Genuine mint errors can be collectible, but authentication is important because post-mint damage can sometimes look surprisingly similar to an error. The edge is also worth checking. Because the standard 1971 D Washington quarter is clad, you can see the copper-colored core between the outer layers when viewing the edge. Look for anything that seems unusual compared with a normal clad quarter. Again, one unusual-looking feature is not enough to establish a rare error, but it can be a reason to investigate the coin more carefully. Weight is another useful clue. A standard 1971 D-clad Washington quarter has a stated weight of 5.67 grams. If you have one at home, place it on an accurate digital scale and record the result. A small variation does not automatically indicate an error because manufacturing tolerances, wear, dirt, and scale accuracy can affect the measurement. But a significant difference may deserve additional attention, especially if the coin also has unusual visual characteristics. Condition can make a huge difference in the world of coin collecting. Imagine two 1971 D quarters sitting next to each other. Both have the same date and mint mark, but one has been heavily circulated, with scratches, worn details, and numerous contact marks. The other has sharp details, strong original luster, and very few marks. Even though they are the same basic issue, collectors may view them very differently. This is why you should never clean a potentially collectible coin just because it looks dirty. Cleaning can leave scratches or alter the original surface, potentially reducing collector appeal. If you discover a coin that appears unusually well preserved, it is generally better to leave the surface alone and have it evaluated by someone experienced in numismatics before attempting anything yourself. Another important point is that a 1971 D quarter should not automatically be described as a valuable coin simply because it is several decades old. Age by itself does not determine value. Mintage, survival rate, condition, rarity, varieties, errors, demand, and auction results all play a role. A coin can be more than 50 years old and still be relatively common, while a specific rare variety or authenticated mint error can attract much greater collector interest. This is where the treasure hunting side of coin collecting becomes exciting. You might find a 1971 D quarter in an old collection, a family coin jar, a box of inherited coins, or even mixed change. Most examples may be ordinary, but the goal is not to assume every coin is valuable. The goal is to know what to look for. Once you learn how to examine dates, mint marks, surfaces, edges, weight, and condition, you start seeing coins differently. If you have a 1971 D Washington quarter, take a clear look at both sides under good lighting. Compare it with another normal Washington quarter from the same era. Look at the lettering, the date, the mint mark, Washington's portrait, the eagle, and the rim. Sometimes comparing two coins side by side makes an unusual feature much easier to recognize. And I want to hear from you. Do you have a 1971 D Washington quarter in your collection? What condition is it in? Have you noticed anything unusual about the date, D mint mark, lettering, rim, edge, or reverse design? Give me a reply in the comments and tell me what you found. If you have any of the coins we show in our videos, let us know because your experience could help other collectors who are searching through their own collections. And if you enjoy searching for valuable Washington quarters and other U.S. coins, make sure you subscribe to U.S Rare Coins News. Turn on notifications so you do not miss the next video, because another old coin could be sitting unnoticed in a collection, drawer, jar, or box right now. Before you spend your next old quarter, remember this simple rule: check the date, check the mint mark, check the condition, check the weight, inspect the edge, and look for genuine minting characteristics. Never assume that every unusual mark is an error, but never ignore a coin simply because it looks ordinary either. Careful examination is one of the most important skills any coin collector can develop. And now we come to the final price figure for this video. The amount being featured is $66,000. That figure should not be interpreted as the normal value of an ordinary circulated 1971 D Washington quarter. Actual market value depends on the specific coin, its condition, authenticity, variety or error status, and documented sales. Top 3. What if a quarter from 1967 has been sitting unnoticed in an old collection, coin jar, or drawer for decades? At first glance, a 1967 Washington quarter may look like nothing more than an ordinary 25-cent coin. But once you start examining the date, composition, condition, surfaces, and possible minting characteristics, the story becomes much more interesting. So before you spend or trade away a 1967 quarter, take a moment and inspect it carefully, because the smallest details can make a major difference to collectors. The coin featured in this video is the 1967 Washington quarter dollar. This coin was produced during an unusual period in American coinage history, when the U.S. Mint had switched away from the traditional silver composition used on earlier Washington quarters. The standard 1967 Washington quarter has a weight of approximately 5.67 grams, a diameter of about 24.26 millimeters, and a thickness of approximately 1.75 millimeters. Its composition is copper and nickel clad over a copper core. One of the most interesting things about this coin is the absence of a mint mark. If your 1967 Washington quarter has no mint mark, that is normal. The U.S. Mint did not use mint marks on circulating coins dated 1965 through 1967 as part of the effort to discourage coin collecting during the coin shortage of that period. So when you see a 1967 quarter with no mint mark, do not immediately think something is missing. The missing mint mark is actually part of the history of this issue. Now take a close look at the obverse. George Washington appears facing left, with liberty across the top, in God We Trust on either side of his portrait, and the date 1967 below. The design is familiar to virtually every American collector, but examining the details can reveal information about the coin's condition and possible varieties. The reverse features the American eagle with its wings spread wide. Around the eagle are United States of America, E pluribus unum, and quarter dollar. This classic reverse design was used on Washington quarters for many years, making the 1967 issue instantly recognizable. When examining the reverse, pay attention to the eagle's feathers, the lettering, the stars, and the overall sharpness of the strike. Now here is where your search should become more careful. Do not look at the date alone. Examine the entire coin. Check the lettering for unusual doubling, inspect the date for abnormalities, and look around the rim for anything that appears inconsistent. Examine both sides under good lighting and compare the coin with another normal Washington quarter. A comparison can help you distinguish an unusual feature from ordinary wear or damage. The weight is another useful check. A normal 1967 clad Washington quarter is expected to be around 5.67 grams. If you own one, use a reasonably accurate digital scale and record the result. A small difference does not automatically mean you have an error. Coins can experience normal manufacturing tolerances, and wear or dirt can also influence a measurement. But if the weight is significantly different and the coin also has unusual physical characteristics, it may deserve further investigation. Next, carefully examine the edge. Because the 1967 quarter is clad, the edge can reveal the copper-colored core between the outer layers. Look around the entire circumference and check whether the edge appears consistent. An unusual edge can sometimes be associated with a minting problem, but remember that damage occurring after a coin leaves the mint can also alter the edge. Condition is one of the biggest factors affecting collectible coins. A heavily circulated 1967 quarter may show worn details, scratches, contact marks, and a dull surface. Another example from the same year could have much sharper details and substantially better preservation. Collectors generally pay more attention to exceptional examples, especially when the coin has strong surfaces and excellent overall preservation. This is also why you should never clean an old coin just because it looks dirty. Cleaning can create scratches and permanently change the surface. If your 1967 quarter looks unusually well preserved or has characteristics you do not understand, leave it as it is and consider having it examined by an experienced coin dealer or professional grading service. Another important point is the difference between a normal old coin and a genuinely rare coin. Being nearly 60 years old does not automatically make a 1967 Washington quarter rare. Large numbers were produced, and many examples still exist today. The interesting part of collecting is learning why some examples become more desirable than others. Condition, varieties, errors, provenance, and collector demand can all influence value. The 1967 quarter is also historically important because it belongs to the early years of the copper-nickel clad era. The U.S. Mint introduced clad coinage for circulating dimes and quarters beginning in 1965 as a response to the rising cost of silver. That makes the 1967 quarter an interesting piece of the transition in American coinage. It represents a period when the familiar Washington quarter design continued, but the metal composition had changed. If you find one in an old collection, take a few minutes to document it. Note the weight, photograph both sides, inspect the edge, and write down anything unusual you notice. If you believe you have discovered a possible error, compare it with reliable references or seek a professional opinion rather than relying only on an online claim. And now I want to hear from you. Do you have a 1967 Washington quarter in your collection? Does your coin have the normal no mint mark appearance? What condition is it in? Have you noticed anything unusual about the date, lettering, rim, edge, or eagle? Give me a reply in the comments and tell me about your coin. If you have any of the coins we show in this video, let us know because your comment could help other collectors who are searching through their own collections. If you enjoy discovering interesting U.S. coins, learning about Washington quarters, checking for possible errors, and exploring the history behind American coinage, make sure you subscribe to U.S Rare Coins News. Turn on notifications so you can join us for the next coin hunt. You never know when an old coin sitting in a collection might deserve a second look. Before you spend an old quarter, remember the simple checklist: look at the date, check the mint mark situation, inspect the weight, study both sides, examine the edge, and evaluate the condition. Most importantly, learn to separate genuine minting characteristics from damage that happened after the coin entered circulation. That knowledge can save you from overlooking an interesting coin and can also protect you from believing unrealistic value claims. And now for the final price figure featured in this video, the amount is $42,000. This should not be treated as the normal value of an ordinary 1967 Washington quarter. Actual market value depends on the exact coin, its condition, authenticity, variety or error status, and documented collector or auction demand. The real treasure is knowing exactly what you have before you decide what to do with it. Top 4. What if one of the most ordinary looking coins in your collection deserves a second look? A 1974 Washington quarter may have passed through countless hands, sat inside an old coin jar, or been forgotten in a drawer for decades. Most people would see a simple 25-cent coin and move on. But collectors know that the real story is often hidden in the small details: its date, mint mark status, composition, condition, strike quality, and any unusual characteristics created during production. So before you spend that old 1974 quarter, give it a careful inspection. The coin featured in this video is the Washington quarter dollar dated 1974. This standard circulating quarter weighs approximately 5.67 grams, has a diameter of about 24.26 millimeters, and measures approximately 1.75 millimeters in thickness. Its standard composition is copper and nickel clad over a copper core. This makes the 1974 issue part of the modern clad Washington quarter era that began after the United States moved away from silver in circulating dimes and quarters. Now look closely at the obverse of the coin. You can see the familiar portrait of George Washington facing left. Above him is Liberty, while "I in God We Trust" appears around his portrait, and the date 1974 is positioned at the bottom. The design may seem extremely familiar, but when you are searching for collectible characteristics, you should not simply glance at the coin and put it away. Take your time and examine every major feature. One interesting detail about the coin in this video is the absence of a mint mark. A 1974 quarter with no mint mark was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, where coins did not carry a mint mark during this period. So if you find a 1974 Washington quarter without a mint mark, that is not automatically an error. It is a normal characteristic of the Philadelphia issue. The important thing is learning what is normal before deciding that something unusual is valuable. Now turn the coin over. The reverse displays the familiar American eagle with its wings spread wide. Around the eagle are the inscriptions United States of America, E pluribus unum, and quarter dollar. The reverse design had already become extremely recognizable by 1974, and millions of Americans would have handled coins featuring this same design. But here is where your examination becomes more interesting. Start by looking closely at the date. Check the numbers in 1974 and compare their shapes with another normal quarter. Look at the surrounding fields and the area around the lettering. Then move toward Washington's portrait and examine the hair, facial details, lettering, and rim. On the reverse, inspect the eagle's feathers, stars, lettering, and the spaces between the design elements. If you notice something that looks doubled, distorted, unusually raised, or missing, do not immediately assume you have discovered a rare mint error. Coins can receive scratches, dents, gouges, or other damage after leaving the mint. A genuine minting error generally has characteristics connected to the manufacturing process. That is why careful comparison and professional examination can be important when something looks unusual. The weight is another useful test. A standard clad 1974 Washington quarter is expected to weigh around 5.67 grams. If you have a digital scale, place the coin on it and record the measurement. A tiny difference does not automatically mean the coin is rare. Manufacturing tolerances, circulation wear, dirt, and scale accuracy can all affect the result. However, a significant difference combined with unusual visual characteristics may give you a reason to investigate further. The edge is worth checking too. Because this is a clad quarter, you can normally see the copper-colored core between the outer layers along the edge. Slowly rotate the coin and examine the entire circumference. Look for anything that appears dramatically different from a normal clad quarter. An unusual edge can be interesting, but remember that post-mint damage can also affect this area. Condition is another major factor collectors consider. Imagine two 1974 Washington quarters. Both have no mint mark, both are the same basic issue, and both have the same design. One has been heavily circulated for decades, with worn details and numerous marks. The other has sharp details, attractive original surfaces, and very little evidence of circulation. Even though they share the same date, their collector appeal can be very different. This is why you should never clean an old coin simply because it looks dirty. Cleaning can leave scratches and alter the original surface. If you discover a 1974 quarter that looks unusually well preserved, leave it alone. A coin that appears ordinary at first could become much more interesting once its condition and characteristics are properly evaluated. The 1974 Washington quarter is also a small piece of American monetary history. By this time, the country had already transitioned away from silver for ordinary circulating quarters. The clad composition was designed to provide a less expensive alternative while maintaining the familiar appearance and size of the quarter. So even a normal 1974 quarter can tell us something about the changing economics and technology of American coinage. Another important lesson for collectors is that age alone does not determine value. A coin from 1974 is more than 50 years old, but that does not automatically make every example rare. Large numbers were produced, and many survive today. What makes an individual coin stand out can include exceptional condition, a recognized variety, a genuine mint error, or other documented characteristics that collectors specifically seek. If you have one of these quarters at home, take it out and inspect it under good lighting. Look at both sides, check the edge, weigh it if possible, and compare it with another ordinary quarter. Take clear photographs if you notice something unusual. If the feature still looks different after comparison, consider getting an expert opinion instead of relying on an exaggerated online claim. And now I want to hear from you. Do you have a 1974 Washington quarter with no mint mark? What condition is your coin in? Have you noticed anything unusual about the date, lettering, rim, edge, or eagle? Give me a reply in the comments and tell me about your coin. If you have any coin that we show in our videos, let us know what you found. Your comment might help another collector recognize something interesting in their own collection. If you enjoy searching through old U.S. coins and learning how to identify Washington quarters, possible errors, unusual varieties, and collectible characteristics, make sure you subscribe to U.S. Rare Coins News. Turn on notifications so you can follow our next coin search. There are millions of old coins still sitting in collections, jars, boxes, and drawers, and sometimes the only thing standing between an overlooked coin and a fascinating discovery is knowing what details to check. Before you spend that old 1974 quarter, remember the collector's checklist: check the date, understand the mint mark situation, verify the weight, examine both sides, inspect the edge, and evaluate the condition. Most importantly, do not judge a coin based on a huge price claim alone. Authenticity, condition, rarity, and documented market evidence are what really matter when determining what a coin may be worth. And now we come to the final price figure featured in this video. The amount is $57,000. This should not be considered the normal value of an ordinary 1974 Washington quarter. The actual value of a specific coin depends on its condition, authenticity, variety or error status, and documented collector or auction demand. So take another look at your 1974 quarter, because the first step toward understanding any coin is knowing exactly what you have. Top 5. What if a quarter that has been sitting unnoticed for almost 40 years could have a detail that makes collectors stop and take a second look? The 1987 P. Washington quarter looks like an ordinary 25-cent coin, but that is exactly what makes old U.S. coins so fascinating. Millions of quarters have passed through American pockets, cash registers, vending machines, and coin jars, yet every individual coin has its own condition and history. So before you spend a 1987 quarter, take a closer look and see what you actually have. The coin featured in this video is the 1987 P. Washington quarter dollar. The standard coin weighs approximately 5.67 grams, has a diameter of about 24.26 millimeters, and measures approximately 1.75 millimeters in thickness. Its composition is copper and nickel clad over a copper core. The P Mint mark identifies the Philadelphia Mint, and that small letter can be found on the obverse of the coin near the bottom of Washington's portrait. Start by examining the obverse carefully. George Washington appears facing left, with Liberty above him, In God We Trust around the portrait, and the date 1987 below. This familiar design had been used on Washington quarters for many years, but collectors know that the value of an individual coin is not determined by the design alone. The date, mint mark, condition, strike, surface quality, and possible varieties all deserve attention. Now focus on that little P mint mark. It tells us that this quarter was struck at Philadelphia. A mint mark is useful because it allows collectors to distinguish coins produced at different U.S. mint facilities. But remember, having a P mint mark does not automatically make a 1987 quarter rare. The real question is whether your particular coin has an unusual variety, an authentic minting error, or an exceptionally high level of preservation. Turn the coin over and the classic Washington quarter reverse comes into view. The American eagle stands proudly with its wings spread, surrounded by United States of America, e pluribus unum, and quarter dollar. When examining this side, pay close attention to the eagle, the stars, the lettering, and the overall sharpness of the strike. Now comes the part that every collector should take seriously. Inspect the coin under good lighting. Start with the date and move slowly across Washington's portrait. Look at the lettering, the rim, and the fields around the main design. Then examine the reverse just as carefully. You are looking for characteristics that appear unusual compared with a normal 1987 P quarter. If you think you see doubling, do not immediately assume that the coin is a rare double die. True double die characteristics have specific patterns and should be compared with known examples. Mechanical damage, scratches, die deterioration, and other forms of post-mint damage can sometimes create appearances that look unusual to an inexperienced collector. That is why careful comparison is so important. The weight of the coin provides another useful clue. A standard 1987 P-clad Washington quarter weighs about 5.67 grams. If you own one, place it on an accurate digital scale and check the result. Do not panic if the number is slightly different. Normal production tolerances, wear, dirt, and scale accuracy can all affect the measurement. A substantial difference, especially when combined with other unusual characteristics, may justify further investigation. The edge can tell you more as well. Because this is a clad quarter, the edge normally reveals the copper-colored core between the outer layers. Slowly rotate the coin and inspect the complete edge. Look for anything that appears significantly different from a normal quarter. If you notice a strange edge, do not clean, file, or alter the coin. Preserve it exactly as you found it so that an expert can examine it properly. Condition is one of the most important factors in determining collector interest. Think about the journey this quarter may have taken since 1987. It could have been carried in pockets, dropped onto pavement, stored with thousands of other coins, or carefully placed into a collection shortly after it was produced. Every one of those experiences can affect the coin's surfaces. A heavily circulated quarter may show scratches, contact marks, dull surfaces, and worn details. A coin that has remained in exceptional condition can look completely different. Sharp design details, strong original luster, and minimal contact marks can make an example much more attractive to collectors. In particularly high grades, small differences in preservation can become very important. This is also why cleaning should be avoided. If your 1987 P quarter looks dirty, resist the temptation to polish it or use household chemicals. Cleaning can permanently damage the surface and reduce collector appeal. If the coin appears unusually nice or has an unusual characteristic, keeping the original surface intact is generally the safer choice. Another important point is that a coin does not become valuable simply because it is old. The 1987 P Washington quarter is not rare merely because it is approaching 40 years of age. Many examples exist. What makes a particular coin interesting can be its grade, variety, genuine mint error, or another documented characteristic that separates it from ordinary examples. This is what makes coin hunting so exciting. You are not simply searching for old coins. You are learning to recognize differences. A normal coin teaches you what normal looks like. Once you know the normal appearance, an authentic unusual characteristic becomes much easier to notice. If you have a 1987 P quarter at home, compare it with another Washington quarter from the same period. Put both coins under the same light and look at the date, lettering, mint mark, rim, eagle, and surfaces. Check the edge and, if you have the equipment, measure the weight. Take clear photographs of anything that looks unusual. Good documentation can be very useful if you later decide to have the coin examined. And now I want to hear from you. Do you have a 1987 P Washington quarter in your collection? What condition is it in? Have you discovered anything unusual on the date, P mint mark, lettering, rim, edge, or reverse? Give me a reply in the comments and tell me what you found. If you have any of the coins we show in our videos, let us know about them as well. Your comment could help another collector recognize an interesting coin in their own collection. If you enjoy searching for Washington quarters, learning about U.S. coin history, checking possible mint errors, and discovering what makes one coin different from another, make sure you subscribe to U.S. Rare Coins News. Turn on notifications so you do not miss the next video, because there are still countless old U.S. coins waiting to be examined. Before you spend your next old quarter, remember the basics: check the date, identify the mint mark, inspect the condition, verify the weight, examine the edge, and carefully study both sides. Most importantly, never assume that every scratch or unusual mark is a valuable mint error. Learn what normal looks like first, then investigate anything that truly stands out. And now for the final price figure featured in this video, the amount is $52,000. This should not be interpreted as the normal value of an ordinary 1987 P Washington quarter. The actual value of a specific coin depends on its authenticity, condition, grade, variety or error status, and documented collector or auction demand. So take another look at your 1987 P quarter, because the first step in coin collecting is not guessing the price, it is learning exactly what you have. Top 6. What if the next quarter you find in an old coin jar turns out to be far more interesting than it first appears? Most people see a Washington quarter and think only about 25 cents. But collectors know that every old coin deserves a closer look. The 1988 D Washington quarter dollar may appear ordinary at first, yet its date, Denver mint mark, condition, strike quality, and possible minting characteristics can all make a particular example worth investigating. So before you spend that old quarter, stop for a moment and look carefully at every detail. The coin featured in this video is the 1988 D Washington quarter dollar, struck for circulation at the Denver Mint. This standard Washington quarter weighs approximately 5.67 grams, has a diameter of about 24.26 millimeters, and measures approximately 1.75 millimeters in thickness. Its composition is copper and nickel clad over a copper core. These specifications are important because they help collectors identify whether a coin matches the normal characteristics expected for this issue. The first detail to notice is the date, 1988. Below George Washington's portrait, you will also find the D mint mark, identifying the Denver Mint. That tiny letter is an important part of the coin's identity. However, a D mint mark by itself does not mean the coin is rare. Millions of coins were produced at the Denver Mint, so collectors must look beyond the mint mark and examine the entire coin. On the obverse, George Washington faces left, surrounded by the familiar inscriptions Liberty and In God We Trust. The date 1988 appears below the portrait. At first glance, everything may look exactly as expected. But this is where a real coin search begins. Look closely at the numbers in the date. Examine the D mint mark. Study the lettering and Washington's portrait. Search for anything that appears different from a normal example. If you notice what looks like doubling on the letters or numbers, take your time before deciding that you have found a rare variety. Not every doubled looking feature is a genuine doubled die. Some unusual appearances can be caused by strike characteristics, die deterioration, wear, or damage after the coin entered circulation. A genuine variety should be compared with reliable references and, if necessary, examined by an experienced numismatist. Now turn the coin over and inspect the classic reverse. The American eagle appears with its wings spread, while United States of America, E pluribus unum, and quarter dollar surround the design. Take a close look at the eagle's feathers, the lettering, the stars, and the rim. A sharply struck, well-preserved reverse can be more appealing to collectors than one showing extensive wear and damage. Weight is another important part of the investigation. A standard 1988 D-clad Washington quarter should weigh approximately 5.67 grams. If you have an accurate digital scale, weigh your coin and write down the result. A small variation does not automatically mean that the coin is a rare error because normal production tolerances, wear, dirt, and the scale itself can affect the reading. But if a coin is significantly different from the expected weight and also has unusual physical features, it could be worth having examined. The diameter is approximately 24.26 millimeters, and the thickness is approximately 1.75 millimeters. These measurements can help you understand the normal size of the coin. If a quarter appears unusually shaped, dramatically off-center, or significantly different in size, it deserves a closer inspection. But never alter the coin to test it. Do not bend, cut, scrape, or modify a potentially collectible coin. Next, examine the edge. Because this is a copper nickel-clad coin, the edge normally shows the copper-colored core between the outer layers. Slowly rotate the coin under good light and inspect the entire edge. Look for unusual characteristics, but remember that damage can happen after the coin leaves the mint. A damaged edge and a genuine mint error are not necessarily the same thing. Condition can completely change how collectors view a coin. Imagine two 1988 D Washington quarters. Both have the same date, the same D mint mark, and the same basic design. One has circulated heavily for years, with worn details, scratches, and contact marks. The other has sharp details, strong original luster, and very few marks. Even though both coins started as the same issue, the better preserved example can attract much greater collector interest. That is why you should be careful with any coin that appears unusually well preserved. Do not polish it. Do not use chemicals to make it shine. Do not scrub away toning or dirt. Cleaning can damage the original surfaces and reduce collector appeal. If you believe you have found an exceptional coin, preserve it as it is and consider seeking a professional evaluation. The exciting part about searching old quarters is that you never know exactly what you might discover. Most 1988 D quarters will be ordinary circulation coins, but coin collecting is about identifying the exceptions. An unusually high-grade coin, a recognized variety, or an authenticated mint error can be much more interesting than a typical example. Start by learning what a normal 1988 D Washington quarter looks like. Once you understand the normal date, mint mark, design, weight, edge, and strike, you will be better able to recognize something unusual. Compare your coin with another quarter if possible. Good lighting and clear photographs can also help you study small details. And now I want to hear from you. Do you have a 1988 D Washington quarter in your collection? What condition is your coin in? Have you noticed anything unusual about the date, the D mint mark, the lettering, the rim, the edge, or the eagle on the reverse? Give me a reply in the comments and tell me about your coin. If you have any of the coins we show in our videos, make sure to tell us which ones you have, because I would love to know what is hiding in your collection. If you enjoy discovering interesting U.S. coins, searching for Washington quarter varieties, learning about possible mint errors, and finding out what collectors look for, make sure you subscribe to U.S Rare Coins News. Turn on notifications so you do not miss our next video. Every old coin has a story, and sometimes a coin that looks completely ordinary can become much more interesting when you finally examine the details. Before you spend another old quarter, remember this: check the date, check the mint mark, inspect both sides, examine the edge, verify the weight, and pay close attention to condition. Never assume that a huge online price applies to every coin with the same date. Real value depends on the exact characteristics of the individual coin, including authenticity, grade, rarity, recognized varieties, genuine errors, and actual collector demand. And now we come to the final price figure featured in this video. The amount is $73,000. This should not be considered the normal value of an ordinary 1988 D Washington quarter. The actual value of any specific coin depends on its condition, authenticity, grade, recognized variety or error status, and documented collector or auction demand. So check your 1988 D quarter carefully, because the most important discovery is not guessing a price, it is understanding exactly what makes your particular coin special. Top 7. Imagine reaching into an old coin jar and pulling out a Washington quarter dated 1990. At first, it looks like an ordinary 25-cent piece, the kind of coin most people would spend without a second thought. But what if that coin has an unusual characteristic, exceptional preservation, or a feature that makes collectors want to examine it much more closely? That is why you should never rush when searching old U.S. coins. The date is only the beginning of the story. The coin featured in this video is the 1990 D Washington quarter dollar, struck at the Denver Mint. The standard coin weighs approximately 5.67 grams, measures about 24.26 millimeters in diameter, and has a thickness of approximately 1.75 millimeters. Its standard composition is copper and nickel clad over a copper core. The D Mint mark identifies the Denver Mint and appears on the obverse near the bottom of George Washington's portrait. Take a close look at the obverse. George Washington is facing left, with liberty above his portrait, in God we trust beside him, and the date 1990 below. These familiar details make the coin instantly recognizable, but collectors know that the interesting part can be hidden in very small areas. Start with the date and inspect each digit carefully. Then move your attention to the D Mint mark and surrounding surface. The D Mint mark tells us that this particular quarter was produced at Denver. But remember something very important, the presence of a D does not automatically make a 1990 quarter rare. Mint marks identify production facilities, but value depends on many other factors. Condition, recognized varieties, genuine mint errors, and collector demand can all influence the desirability of an individual coin. Now turn the quarter over and examine the reverse. The American eagle stands with its wings spread, surrounded by United States of America, e pluribus unum, and quarter dollar. Look carefully at the eagle's feathers, the stars, the lettering, and the rim. Compare these details with another normal Washington quarter if you have one available. Side-by-side comparison can make unusual characteristics much easier to notice. One of the most important things to understand about coin errors is that not every strange mark is a mint error. A scratch can look like doubling. A dent can make the rim appear unusual. A damaged surface can create shapes that were never present when the coin was struck. If you notice something unusual on your 1990 D quarter, study it carefully before deciding that it is valuable. The date is a good place to begin your search. Look closely at the numbers in 1990 and inspect the surrounding field. Then examine the lettering and Washington's portrait. Look for unusual doubling or other characteristics that appear to be part of the original strike. If something truly stands out, photograph it clearly and compare it with trusted numismatic references. Next, check the weight. A standard 1990 D-clad Washington quarter weighs approximately 5.67 grams. A digital scale can help you determine whether your coin is close to the expected standard. A tiny difference should not cause alarm because normal production tolerances, wear, dirt, and scale accuracy can affect the result. A major difference, especially when combined with an unusual appearance, may justify additional research. The diameter is approximately 24.26 millimeters, while the thickness is approximately 1.75 millimeters. These measurements help establish what a normal quarter should look and feel like. If you encounter a coin that appears dramatically different in shape or size, do not modify it to investigate. Preserve the coin exactly as you found it. The edge deserves attention as well. Since this quarter uses a copper-nickel clad composition over a copper core, the edge normally shows the copper-colored center between the outer layers. Slowly rotate the coin and inspect the entire edge. If you notice something unusual, compare it with a normal quarter from the same period. A strange edge can be interesting, but post-mint damage must always be considered. Condition is another major factor. Think about how much use a quarter could experience over several decades. A 1990D quarter might have spent years circulating through pockets, cash registers, vending machines, and coin trays. As a result, many examples show scratches, contact marks, worn details, and reduced luster. But an example that has been carefully preserved can look dramatically different. A high-quality example may show sharp lettering, strong design details, attractive original surfaces, and very little evidence of circulation. When coins reach particularly high grades, even small differences in preservation can become important to collectors. That is why an ordinary-looking date can still be worth examining when the coin is in exceptional condition. And if your coin looks unusually clean or shiny, do not polish it. Cleaning an old coin can create scratches and permanently change the original surface. Household chemicals and abrasive materials can also damage the coin. If you think you have an exceptional example, keeping the original surface intact is much safer than trying to make the coin look newer. The 1990D Washington quarter is also interesting from a historical perspective. It belongs to a generation of American quarters that continued the long-running Washington design while using the modern copper-nickel clad composition. Millions of Americans handled coins like this every day, and today many of those same coins remain in collections, jars, boxes, and old change. But coin collecting is not about assuming that every old coin is worth a fortune. It is about learning how to recognize the characteristics that separate an ordinary coin from an exceptional one. Most 1990D quarters will be common. That does not make them uninteresting. They can still be valuable to collectors as part of a date and mint collection, and a particular coin can become much more interesting if it has an authenticated variety, genuine mint error, or exceptional grade. If you have a 1990D Washington quarter, take it out and give it a proper inspection. Use good lighting. Look at both sides. Check the date and mint mark. Examine the lettering and rim. Inspect the edge. Weigh it if you have an accurate scale. And if you find something unusual, take clear photographs before doing anything else. Now I want to hear from you. Do you have a 1990D Washington quarter in your collection? What condition is it in? Have you noticed anything unusual on the date, mint mark, lettering, rim, edge, or reverse? Give me a reply in the comments and tell me about your coin. If you have any of the coins we show in our videos, let us know which ones you have. Your comment may help another collector discover something interesting in their own collection. And if you enjoy searching for Washington quarters, learning about U.S. coin history, checking possible mint errors, and discovering what collectors look for, make sure you subscribe to U.S. Rare Coins News. Turn on notifications so you do not miss the next video. We will keep exploring old American coins and the details that make individual examples worth a closer look. Before you spend an older quarter, remember the collector's checklist: check the date, identify the mint mark, inspect both sides, examine the edge, verify the weight, and study the condition. Never assume that a scratch or unusual mark automatically makes a coin rare. Learn what normal looks like first, then investigate anything that genuinely stands out. And now we come to the final price figure featured in this video. The amount is $86,000. This should not be considered the normal value of an ordinary 1990D Washington quarter. The actual value of a specific coin depends on authenticity, condition, grade, recognized varieties or genuine errors, and documented collector or auction demand. So before you spend your 1990D quarter, take another look. You may discover a detail you never noticed before.